Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and today we're going to talk about something that's way more important than a living trust, a will, even a living will, even your power of attorneys. And that one thing, I'm going to call it an emergency binder. And I put together an emergency binder for you. I'll show you how you can access it absolutely free before the end of this video. But let me talk about why it's so important. So, as we are going about our lives, a lot of times we think of what happens if there's my demise? How does my estate get divvied up? As I'm going about my life, I may be concerned that I need an advocate to speak for me in the event that I'm injured or cannot speak for myself from healthcare matters, maybe for financial matters. And we handle those in something called a living trust. A lot of people will just do a will. They'll just, here's, if I die, here's who gets my stuff. I'm just going to say that there's a lot more that goes on. Chances are, probably 99% or greater, that something will occur during your lifetime where it's not going to be covered by that living trust or that living will or that will. And what we really need is to have our information articulated and put into a single source where somebody can access it if there's an emergency and can advocate on my behalf in another way. And here's what I'm going to say. If something were to happen to you, God forbid you weren't able to speak for yourself, you're either injured, you're sick, or you pass away, there are a whole bunch of areas in your life that are not covered under those other documents, a living trust, a living will, or a will. And that is like, who are my friends? Who should be notified? Do I want burial? Do I want cremation? What type of honors do I want if I was military? What are my benefits? How about things like social media? How does somebody get into my Instagram, my Facebook, my X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it? Who gets access to those things? How do they access it? How do I transfer that securely so that just in case somebody happens upon my information that they can't do harm to me? How about what bills are there for me to pay? And again, I'll use an example. I had a client who, in the process of doing her estate plan, she started talking about her son who was in his 20s and whether he needed one. And she kept saying, well, he's young, he doesn't really need one. And it ended up that he ended up in a medical emergency in another country where he was actually down for the count. He was actually comatose at one point. They had to medically induce coma because he had something that was in his brain causing swelling. And for about 6 months, he was not able to do things on his own behalf. Now, we needed a power of attorney there, but we also needed to know where were his accounts, what assets did he have, and nobody knew. And at the end of it, like luckily he survived and he was fine. He came in, he ended up having foreclosures had to deal with, almost went into bankruptcy, had just a big nightmare when he came home because nobody knew what these things were. And it turned out that he had a couple of business partners and a couple of friends that actually knew quite a bit, but they didn't know who to talk to. And all that we needed was a simple statement from him, like, here's who I'm doing business with. Here's my accounts. Here's where they're held. Here's some friends you could talk to. Here's the people I hang out with. If we had just known that information, we could have picked up the phone, sent an email, contacted people. And that's what this emergency binder does. And I'm just going to do this real straight up. Right down here, there's a link. It's absolutely free. Share it with whomever you want. There's not money in it. What we're trying to do is press out awareness and let people know, hey, there's a lot more to planning than just planning for the inevitable, like passing away, or if I'm incapacitated. There's planning that occurs like, hey, if there's an emergency, who's my doctor? Who do I regularly see? Who's my dentist? Where do I normally go for care? That should be in here. How about my pets? Who takes care of my pets? Do they have a pet sitter? Do they have pet friends? I know I have a pet sitter, and it's really easy for me to say, here's who you contact in the event something happens to me to make sure that my animals are okay. You could put that into a document and it's easy for somebody to follow. Or here's the people that I associate with, and here's my friend, here's my group, so that if something happens to you, people can let them know. And it's so odd, in this day and age, a lot of it's just on our phones, right? We have a phone, and if only somebody could get into that phone, right? Well, we don't want everybody into our phone. So how about I start listing out, here's my circle of friends, and they're going to know, because they're my circle of friends, who else they may want to contact. And if there is something that occurs to me, they would be the ones that would want to know. And they're the ones that also know me, my habits, things like that. How about if you have children? And I hate to say this, but if something were to happen to mom and dad, who are the kids' friends? What schools do they go to? What types of activities do they do? Those things are important to know so that if there is an emergency or there is a disruption in their life, that we can minimize it to the extent possible. And again, I'm not talking about mom and dad pass away. We all know that over the last few years that people can get sick. People could be incapacitated for a period of time. People could just not be able to handle their affairs on their own for a certain period of time. And this gives us an easy document somebody can walk up to and know exactly, oh, here's where they go to school, here's the activities they do, here's friends, here's who they like to play with. And yes, there still needs to be an estate planning document. This is not a replacement for a living trust or a living will or those types of documents that name guardians. But what it does is it gives somebody the leg up so that if something happens to you, they can immediately come in and get some idea of what's going on in your life so that they can help and actually be helpful, as opposed to just looking around and reacting. And so this binder has in it all of your bills, your investments. And don't worry, we have a secure password sheet that is separate from this so that the binder by itself, nobody's ever going to be able to breach into your data or find out and access things that would harm you in any way. It has instructions on where somebody can go to get that information. You may even put your password with your lawyer, with your accountant, in a safe, in a Dropbox, in a box, and all you're doing is giving somebody the means to know where they need to go so that they can access that information. But with the binder itself, it cannot hurt you, but it has those types of bits of information. It has your insurance, it has your last tax return, it has your investment strategy, including what is your investment strategy so you can actually leave behind something other than just a bunch of real estate, for example. And maybe that you say, hey, it's really important to me to build up cash flow. I'm trying to create a generational wealth, so I don't want this disposed of. This is where you can actually put that into place. Yes, it works in conjunction, just like this with the living trust. But this is where you can be a human being and actually write it out and explain to somebody, here's like the books that I read, here's the investment strategies that I follow, here's investors that I want to try to emulate, here's the things that I'm trying to accomplish, and you can articulate it in a very simple format. And so we put this binder together, everything from checklists of who should be contacted in the event of emergency, who your providers are for professional services, everything from tax, accounting, medical, dental, pharmacy, you name it, it's in the binder so that you can very easily, here's my life, and somebody can take a look and get some idea of who you utilized. How about here's all my bills, here's my investment accounts and things like that. This is where it's held. They won't be able to access it. I can't stress that enough, but they'll at least know that it's in existence and they'll know that it's on their radar. Because what happens is if you're not able to tell somebody and there's not a good paper trail, then these things, it's going to take years to uncover. Sometimes they never do. Sometimes it goes right back to the state and it gets surrendered at some point because nobody knows that it's even out there. It's not even on their radar. So this gives them the opportunity to see, in a nutshell, here's who I use, here's who I should contact, here's my friends, here's my wishes, all that in a single source document. So you can so that you can organize your life in a way that it's easy to hand to somebody else so that they can help you when you need it. Now, we're all going to need assistance at some point, and it might just be temporary. It may be permanent. Eventually, we're all going to pass. But this document is designed to help in all facets. And this is the beautiful part. There's no cost to it. Make it available to you guys for free. There's videos walking you through how to fill it out. I'll probably do more follow-up as well in doing events so that we can actually do them together to make sure that people are actually putting a plan in place. And I say this from a genuine place of I know that people don't do this type of information because I work with clients all day long. And frankly, I'm a human being too. I look at my own stuff and go, oh man, something happened to me, my wife would be, she's going to be digging up stuff all the time, trying to figure out where everything is. Let me articulate it, put it in a simple format. I even have my entity structure in there so that somebody can see concisely, oh, here's what they need. And again, you can keep this in your office. You can keep it in a safe. You can keep it at some place, so long as if there's an emergency, somebody can access it. It might be that you tell your spouse, here's where I keep it. Me, it's just in my office, right? I just want it to be very easy. I'm not worried about somebody getting it because all my passwords are kept separate. You'll learn how that works. When you access the binder, you're going to see that there's actually a separate document, and where that goes is separate from the binder. But it'll just put everything into a simple format so that you can pass it to somebody else and they can actually help you. I hope that you use this binder. I hope that you spread it out there with other people who could use it, because we all need a little bit more organization, if you know what I mean. And if something happens to us and we no longer have the voice to be able to advocate for ourselves, we need to have something written, something documented behind, so that people can find out what assets we have, what liabilities we have, the things that we care about, the people that are dependent on us, the things that are dependent on us, and that we can articulate it and make sure somebody knows and puts it on their radar, so that if they are in charge of certain aspects of our life on our behalf, that they're able to do what we need them to do and want them to do, rather than them guessing or being in panic mode. And so a little bit of planning goes a long way, and this document's intended to help you put a plan in place for your stuff to make it easy for somebody else to assist you in the event that it's needed. We all know we will need it at some point. Let's hope that it's a long time from now, but let's be prepared just in case.